Welcome to this episode of For the Love of the Sport, where our mission is to educate athletes to be their very best on stage and beyond. All right, on this episode today, we've got Alyssa Flores, who is the founder of Dumbbells and Doughnuts, which is a coaching community. So we're just going to dive right in. How are you today, Alyssa?
Oh, I'm doing good. Always filled with anxiety and stress, but I mean, that's the life, right? That's our life.
That sounds like today's world, right?
Right?
Anxiety,
Oh
stress.
yeah.
Horrible, horrible. So, Alyssa, I don't know this, and I want everybody else to hear too. How did you get started in this bodybuilding world? Did you ever compete, or how did you get interested in it? Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so my fitness journey has been molded over about 2 decades now. And so I'll try and make it as brief as possible. I didn't really recognize that I was heavier than anybody else until the 6th grade. It was called FACS, Family and Consumer Sciences. She had all of us in the class weigh ourselves in front of each other, in front of the class, and then we had to shout our weight out across the room to her, and she would tell us if we were in a healthy range or not.
Wow.
So that was a very defining moment for me in my life. It's actually one of the big founding moments that's started into my distorted eating habits of extreme restrictions. I immediately started eating, 600 calories a day. I learned how to track it in 6th grade.
Wow.
And it slowly, for the next 6 years until a senior in high school, got down to, 300 calories a day. I remember just limiting myself to almonds. And it was all just kind of stemming from that one incident. So if you're in education, those small moments matter.
Yeah.
But I was in a very vicious cycle of extreme restrictions, which led to extreme binging, which then in college, I had a friend where she was like, oh, it doesn't matter if you binge, just take a handful of laxatives. So then in college,
Wow.
yes. So then in college, not only was I doing the restriction and the binging cycles, I was also partaking in, a version of the purging cycle. And in 2012, I was watching a televised bodybuilding show, and I was like, oh my gosh, these women are so beautiful. They must love themselves. And I absolutely hated myself, right? I hated who I was, hated my physique. I didn't feel loved or accepted, not only by my peers, but by myself.
Mhm.
And so I told myself, I was like, oh my gosh, if they can get up on stage and love themselves, I could do it. I want to do that. I want to be there. Right. So anybody who doesn't really know what they're doing, right? You go extreme restriction, all the cardio, no weights, right? Fast forward a few years, I did get a coach and I really got into it.
Did you get on stage before you got a coach?
No.
Okay.
I was so restrictive that I would have huge binging episodes where, I was constantly counterproductive with my progress.
Okay.
It wasn't like these little, I ate an extra, 3 rice cakes. No, I ate 4 whole pizzas in one sitting, right?
Okay.
Huge extremes. I did hire a coach, and then by November of 2017, I competed for the first time after losing, I believe, about 70 pounds. I started my journey a little bit over 200 pounds. And I got on stage for the first time, not competitive, but around 125. And for me, that first time, the first two shows for me were just about having fun, getting up there, getting my feet wet, and just, for me, but the sport of bodybuilding is all about having fun, making connections, and learning to love yourself and growing with the experience. To me, placing doesn't matter. Even if you think that you have the absolute best physique, the judges won't care, necessarily, that you think that you have the best physique. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like my little journey. Now, right now in my life, I'm switching from bikini to wellness if I decide to compete in the future. My primary focus right now is healing some fertility things that are going on, so I can hopefully have a family in the future.
Okay. Wow. So I would say your journey is, I was about to say it's very different, but it's actually probably not very different than a lot of people that I see. I feel like most competitors can resonate with some of what you just said, maybe not all of it, but, and I wouldn't call it necessarily eating disorders. Maybe they haven't been to that level, but I can say for myself, I had a lot of disordered eating, I'll just say early on when I started competing. I didn't have it before I started competing, but in the early days, like restriction, and then of course you want to binge after that. And so it took me years to really find balance. But that's awesome. You used a term that I really like talking about a lot, and that was defining moment. You had a defining moment
Yes.
in sixth grade when that happened to you. And it's always a defining moment in our life that will change the rest of our life or cause us to want to do something to help the world. And so I'm guessing that is what started you and even your journey and wanting to start a coaching community, Dumbbells and
Yeah.
Doughnuts, right? So when did you start that?
We started January 1st of 2020. So right when everything was hitting us.
I feel like you've been around longer than that. I feel like I've heard of it like
Well,
before.
our coaching community started in January. I personally have utilized the name Dumbbells and Doughnuts since 2014 or 15.
Okay. I'm like,
When
I've heard the name before. So
it was when I finally decided to pick up a weight for the first time. And it was the same week that I started working in a bakery. Um, yeah,
oh,
so
okay.
it just stuck with me. And then we use the color purple a lot because it's a very empathetic, empowering color for a lot of our coaching staff. And so it resonates very, very strongly with most of us.
I mean, as you probably know, I love purple too. So
It's a good color.
that's the Nashville Fit Show colors for
I love
multiple reasons. But yeah, yeah. So you started the coaching community in early 2020. And what did the early stages look like?
So I was doing, I am a certified speech therapist by college degree.
Okay.
I was doing speech therapy in the schools. And I just felt this need of there is not a huge availability to coaches who truly care, like deep down empathize with along like every step of the journey. And I don't know what clicked in my brain, but I made it my personal mission to make coaches who are empathetic a very real thing in bodybuilding, because it's not a super relevant thing. And the first time I experienced a coach who was not empathetic, I mean, I thought my world was crumbling in on me. I don't do well with the you suck, like you just have to get stronger. But my dog was dying. Like, could you empathize with me for a second? Right. So like that sort of was another defining moment for me. And in my brain, when we started in January 2020, I thought it was going to be 5, like I was going to do it super part-time, 5 clients on the side. I opened applications for the first time. And I actually I was expecting to have it open for a week, trying to like get 5 people on my roster. I had to close it within 5 hours because I had 42 applications.
Wow.
Yeah. So in that moment, I knew that the universe had more in store for me than I even had in store for myself. Very quickly, we have grown into a 13 coach team where we now coach both men and women.
Oh, wow. That is
Yeah.
amazing. That is amazing. So different coaches have different philosophies. We've heard a little bit about yours so far, but as far as it goes a little bit further, like, do you do only macros? Do you do a set diet plan? Do you do a little of both? Or what does your coaching program kind of look like?
All around with all aspects of, what goes into coaching. So nutrition, workouts, cardio, whatever it is, we believe in a very customized approach, right? So we won't ever claim we are a macros based team or a meal guidance based team. We won't use the word meal plan because we are not registered dietitians. We are working on having one of our coaches become a registered dietitian, but for legal reasons, we'll use meal guidance.
Right.
But based on the person we're working with is how we will define that coaching client relationship and what they need. And that can change throughout the time together. I've had clients who had no clue what a macro was.
Right.
So we had to shift gears a little bit, pivot around, and I helped them design their meal guidance. And then slowly they became more confident in their abilities to track macros. And they're like, oh, I've got this. And then it goes vice versa. When I have a client who's getting really close to this stage, we might utilize macros up until, a few weeks out. And then they're going to, design their meal guidance with me. So
Right.
that way we don't have any GI distress going into
Right. It's
going
important
into shows. Yes.
that
But for
don't know about contest prep. When you get really lean like that, you don't want to switch up things too much. So she's talking about you want to keep it like your body it's already used to certain foods. So you want to keep those foods. And if you do macros, well, technically you can kind of play around a little bit too much with those. And so the set meal plan is probably a lot better.
Absolutely. Even though we utilize macros for the majority of our clients, we still ask for 80 to 90% of, your foods being, consistent day in, day out, week to week. Just because whether you're uber lean or not, your body can have a reaction to things, and not that it like derails progress, but it can halt it for a moment.
Yeah. And just like you were talking about the GI distress, like the digestion issues, like it might not even affect progress, but it's going to affect how you feel. And so that is really,
Yes,
really important. So
absolutely.
are most of your clients, are they competitors, or is it more lifestyle, or is it both, or what do you work
We
more with?
are we are split right down the middle,
Okay.
50-50. I myself primarily work with competitors. I have a couple of lifestyle clients, but they see themselves competing in the next year or two. And so we're laying those foundations now, because competing is all about not what you can do in the next 16 weeks. It's about what you can do in the next decade. And so we're a firm believer in, all of us coaches have coaches. We believe in having coaches year round. I am not unbiased to myself. I will always need a coach. And we believe the same thing for our clients.
Yeah, that's so important. I know, like, even though I prepped myself a few of my shows, it was always better when I had a coach, because our eyes like to play tricks on us and we see fat that isn't there sometimes, or maybe, it could be anything. And I always looked way better when I had a coach, like holding me, not necessarily just holding me accountable, but they would have me eating more than
Yeah,
I would eat myself, because I thought, like, I'm not lean enough. And they would have me eat more and I would look 10 times better on stage because of that.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
example.
Yes. And yeah, it's pretty insane. The way our brains work, even though we're very competent coaches and know how to coach, another human into their show or, into their wedding day. If we try and do it to ourselves, we're like, slash those calories. And I'm like, Alyssa, you would never tell a client to do that. Why are you doing that to yourself?
I
Like,
know, man. I can relate with everything you're saying, so I get it. I'm sure a lot of other people do too. So you kind of already mentioned about competing. You're like, if I choose to compete again, I'm going to this. But what are your goals and your plans right now? Are they competing, or are they just more focused on business? Are they like, what are your goals and your life goals right now?
Oh my goodness. I was trying to think about this. So we're only on year 3 right now of our business. But we're on year 15 of my 5-year plan. So we're we're far ahead. Like, yeah. Every ounce of energy I have right now goes into the business. So I work 12-hour days, 7 days a week, right?
You need
And
you need sleep.
I'm working on it. Right. I'm in therapy. Like, I know I have an addiction to this stress. But we're working on it. Starting in a couple of weeks, my work schedule actually changes. So it's good. It's good. But I don't necessarily have any currently strong inclinations to get back up on stage myself. There are some days when I'm prepping my clients and I'm there, for stage day with them. And I'm like, oh, it'd be so much fun to get back on stage, because it is. I love that camaraderie. I love the work that goes into getting on stage. I personally don't know that in my past chose the best shows that gave me the best experience. And I'm going to tear up because I have been to some of my clients' shows, like your show. Like, I wish it was around when I was competing. It has this amazing atmosphere to it, and I wish that I would have gotten to experience that.
Yeah.
So I think I have a little bit of like PTSD when it comes to like some of that like back end of things. But if I do compete again, it'll probably be in like the next maybe 5 years. Like, I'm not putting a hard deadline on it, which I think is super important, to allow, people to listen to their bodies, put their bodies and health first, not just physical, but also mental and emotional, family. I always tell everybody, a plastic trophy isn't worth losing your marriage over. Like, I will say that again and again and again. I pulled out of a prep in the past because it started to really affect my my marriage, and it was not worth it.
Right.
And I love bodybuilding and competing. So if I'm saying it's not worth it, it's not worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
And my husband supports me 2000%. It was just like that really hard moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know where I see myself. I just know that the business is going to be booming and thriving. And right now I can't see myself trying to prep and put the burden of the business on the other coaches right now.
Yeah, I completely understand that mindset. So, sometimes we have to make a choice. I feel like competing, I'll always want to compete. The competitor in me, like, will always want to get on stage, but I'm at a point now where it's like, if I do that, and then I'm sacrificing my business and like the show, like, I'm here to help other people now. I've had my time on stage. So if I wanted to get back on stage, I might sacrifice the number of people that I'm helping. And at the end of the day, if that's going to happen, it's not worth it to me, if that's even a chance. And so I totally get it. It's like,
yeah. And I mean, people who are like really into the sport don't understand that side. And I know I get criticized a lot for like not getting back on stage right away, but I'm not in any rush. When the universe and God tells me it's time, like, I will work towards that. Right now, like, I dealt with 3, miscarriages last year, and I put on a lot of extra weight. So like, right now my goal is just getting back to a healthy version of myself that that allows my body to feel good again.
yeah. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, you've given us so much knowledge already so far, but I always wrap up the interviews with the same question. And the question is, if you could give just one piece of advice to a new competitor, what's your best advice for them?
I think I'm going to go back to the atmosphere of the show. So if you are planning to compete, do not just go to a show because your friends are going to the show. Do your research about the show. You could, like, I've even now reached out to, past competitors of shows before I recommend a show to a client that I haven't been to before. I think that if you're going to compete in a show that you have not been to before, reach out to those people, get a feel for the environment, because that environment backstage, the environment of the judges, the environment of the promoters can just make a huge world of difference on if you're going to love the sport or kind of like feel a little anxious about having to get on stage that next time.
Oh, that's such good advice. And I wouldn't have thought about that. But now that you're saying that, I look back and I'm like, there are some shows where I had the worst experience, and like I will never go back. Like, luckily, it was some of the bad experiences were already after I'd had a lot of good experiences, and I just know not to go back to those shows. But what if that would have been like my first show, or the first couple? Then I would have like just thought it was the whole sport and not competed anymore. So
Yeah.
that's amazing advice.
Yeah. I mean, I've had clients who came over to our team who have done, like a poorly ran show, or one where people backstage were very catty towards one another, like too cutthroat. In my opinion, yes, I understand it's a competition. You're in competition against the girl next to you, but you also can, wear your crown while adjusting hers, right? Like your guys' crowns don't take away from each other's, shininess.
Exactly.
But so I've had a couple of clients who are like, I'm never competing again because of this show. And then they'll just come be a spectator, right? At a show where we have a few girls in, and they're like, oh my gosh, this show, it was so different, right? Because they'll get to come backstage with us and they're like, this was so different. Maybe I want to compete again. And I'm like, if you want to compete again, let's plan for a year. Let's do this show. You like it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a really great approach as far as, if you're getting into the sport of bodybuilding, in my opinion, for the right reasons. Part of that's going to be making friends along the way, building those long lasting relationships, and just having fun.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, you're so right. Such good advice. So where can people find you if they want to get to know you more? Is it Instagram or your website? What's the best place, or both?
Oh, all of the above, But yes, Dumbbells, DUMBBELLS _, the letter N _, and then the fancy way to spell donuts, because I'm obsessed with it. DOUGHNUTS, Dumbbells and Doughnuts, or just dumbbellsanddoughnuts.com. We secured that URL.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, I'll put it in the show notes below. So if you want to find Alyssa, you can go to Instagram or her website, and it's going to be listed below. So thank you so much, Alyssa. Good talking.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.